Hi everyone, welcome back to Sound Stories. I'm Emma Shaw. Today we're diving into something we all have but hardly ever talk about, the history of accents. So, Lucas, ready to travel through time and sound?
Absolutely, Emma. Hi, I'm Lucas Romero, and I'm excited. Accents are like little time capsules of history and contact. Let's start simple. What exactly is an accent?
Good place to start. An accent is basically the way someone pronounces a language. We're talking sounds, rhythm, and intonation. It doesn't change the words or grammar necessarily, it's about how those words come out of your mouth.
Right. And it's important to separate accent from dialect and language. Accent is pronunciation only. Dialect adds vocabulary and grammar, and language is usually a system not mutually intelligible with another. People mix those up all the time.
Totally. People will often say, I don't have an accent, as if accents belong only to other people. But linguistically, everyone has an accent. What's perceived as no accent is really just the local prestige accent. So yes, your accent tells a story.
Exactly. It tells a story about identity, location, and history, all wrapped into sound. So, Emma, shall we explain how accents start? Where does that story actually begin?
Let's do it. Accents start because communities were separated, geographically or socially, and people mainly heard their neighbors. Before phones, radio, and the internet, small pronunciation differences could snowball into big ones over generations.
Right. Imagine two nearby villages. One says house a little like whose, the other says it differently. And over time, those tiny shifts become systematic. Kids learn from parents and peers, and those features get stronger across generations.
And there are a few big forces that shape accents: geography, migration and mixing, conquest and colonization, and social class or prestige. Each of those plays a role in how a sound either spreads or stays put.
For example, geography, mountains, islands, forests, can isolate communities so they preserve older features. Conversely, migration and cities mix speech and create new urban accents. It's a balance between isolation and contact.
Conquest and colonization are huge too. Invaders bring their sounds and words, and local people adapt. Over time, that creates new pronunciation patterns. And social class? People copy the speech of those with power or prestige.
Yeah, the ruling class, educated groups, or the cool urban crowd can set trends. Sometimes a feature spreads because it's seen as correct or high status, and other features become labeled rural or working class. That social meaning is crucial.
So, we've covered why accents form. Now, I'm itching to talk about a turning point in English history, the Great Vowel Shift. Lucas, you want to take that one?
Happy to. The Great Vowel Shift happened roughly between the 1400s and 1600s in southern England. Long vowels moved upwards in the mouth or became diphthongs. This is a big reason English spelling looks so weird today.
Right, like the classic examples. Bite used to sound closer to beat, meat sounded more like mate, and house shifted from something like whose to house. Spelling started to be standardized around the same time, but pronunciation changed faster.
So you end up with modern spelling that doesn't match modern pronunciation. It also means that English spoken before the shift would sound very different to us now. Fascinating, isn't it?
Very. Another big historical change is the loss of post-vocalic R in parts of England. Up to around 1700, English was largely rhotic. People pronounced R everywhere. Then southern England's upper classes started dropping R after vowels.
Very. Another big historical change is the loss of post-vocalic R in parts of England. Up to around 1700, English was largely rhotic. People pronounced R everywhere. Then southern England's upper classes started dropping R after vowels. By the mid-1700s, that non-rhotic style became associated with prestige, and by the early 1800s, it was shaping what we'd call received pronunciation, or RP. so car became ka in that prestige Southern variety. Amazing how social ideas about class can change sound.
Yes, social prestige literally altered people's mouths, and that non-rhotic RP later became the BBC standard for a long time, which influenced perceptions of proper British English.
But it's worth saying, Emma, that the British accent is a simplification. There are a huge number of British accents: Cockney, Estuary English, Geordie, Scouse, Scottish, Welsh, all with distinct features.
Absolutely. Cockney, for example, uses glottal stops, so butter can become bua, drops H's, so house sounds like ouse, and shifts diphthongs in striking ways. Estuary English blends RP and Cockney and has been spreading around southeast England.
And Northern English accents often keep vowel distinctions that Southern accents don't. Scottish English, for instance, tends to be rhotic and has different vowel qualities entirely. So the British Isles are a patchwork.
Okay, now let's pivot across the Atlantic. Americans often ask, did American English come from British English? The short answer, yes, but with important timing differences. Lucas.
Okay, now let's pivot across the Atlantic. Americans often ask, did American English come from British English? The short answer, yes, but with important timing differences. The early settlers, like those at Jamestown in 1607, brought 17th century English, which was still largely rhotic. Later in Britain, especially among the upper classes, R-dropping became fashionable in the 18th and 19th century. America didn't fully follow that trend.
So in a sense, many American accents preserve older British pronunciations, a kind of linguistic time lag. That's why General American is largely rhotic. Car sounds like car rather than car.
There were exceptions, though. Boston and older New York City working-class accents were historically non-rhotic, so you hear back the ka you'd habardiad. But over the 20th century, rhotic speech became the nationwide prestige, influenced by media and shifting social centers.
And Americans also developed distinct sound patterns, like flapping. Butter becomes something like butter, and water turns into wader in casual speech. Vowel differences show up too. Bath can be short a in American English versus a longer a in Southern British RP.
Stress and intonation differ too. Americans often use more rising or expressive intonation in some contexts, which can sound enthusiastic to non-Americans. RP has been described as flatter or more reserved by some listeners.
So, to sum that chunk up, timing of migration, different social histories, and later media influence all helped split American and British pronunciations. Lucas, ready to talk about Indian English next?
Yes, India is a great example of how local languages shape a colonial language. English arrived via the East India Company and became the language of administration, law, and higher education during the Raj. After independence, it remained an associate official language and a link across many mother tongues.
Yes, India is incredibly multilingual, so Indian English isn't one accent but a cluster, influenced by Hindi, Bengali, Tamil, Telugu, Malayalam, Marathi, Gujarati, Kannada, and many others. That diversity shapes pronunciation features in interesting ways.
Some common tendencies include rhoticity. Many Indian English speakers pronounce R strongly, and an R quality that's often a tap or flap, similar to sounds in many Indian languages. T and D can be dental rather than alveolar, so the tongue placement is slightly different.
Also, V and W sometimes merge or influence each other. Vowel length and quality are affected because Indian languages often have clear long and short vowel systems. And rhythm. Many Indian languages are more syllable-timed, so Indian English can sound more evenly paced with less reduction of vowels.
Importantly, Indian English is not broken British. It's a legitimate variety used in newspapers, television, universities, and courts. It often signals education, urban identity, and social status. but it's a full-fledged variety in its own right.
And media and youth culture have popularized hybrid styles like Hinglish and Tanglish, which mix English and local languages and shape how younger people speak. It's living, evolving stuff.
Emma, let's pause for a tiny reality check. Listeners sometimes worry that their accent is wrong or marks them as less intelligent. What's the best way to address that?
Quick and firm. Accent does not equal intelligence. Linguistic research shows listeners make snap judgments about education, friendliness, or trustworthiness based on accent, but those are stereotypes, not facts. Accent mainly shows exposure and social background.
Right. And those biases have real consequences. Discrimination in job interviews, housing, and classrooms. But we should emphasize that most communication succeeds as long as pronunciation is clear enough, and native speakers have accents too. There's no accent-free speech.
People often feel very protective of their accents because it feels like part of who they are. Changing your accent can feel like losing a piece of identity or even betraying your group. It's emotional for many people.
And yet, accents can change. At the individual level, moving to a new place, social adaptation, deliberate training, or media influence can shift how someone speaks. Children especially pick up local accents quickly. Adults may shift more slowly or partially.
At the community level, urbanization mixes rural dialects, education and media spread standards, and prestige shifts can make some features fashionable or unfashionable. Whole communities can change over decades or centuries.
But you rarely fully lose your original accent. Most people end up with a mix, some features from their heritage speech and some from their new environment. So code switching and mixed accents are the norm, not the exception.
Let's give listeners some concrete, memorable examples, small, vivid sounds they can latch onto. Car is a great one. British RP, car, Boston, car, General American, car, and Indian English, guard, with a tapped or trilled R. It's a neat window into rhotic versus non-rhotic history.
Another fun one is the classroom scenario. Imagine an Indian student presenting at an American university. Classmates might notice the accent at first, but if the content is strong, people stop focusing on pronunciation. It shows comprehension beats accent in the long run.
Actors are another good example. Americans often learn British accents for film, and vice versa. With focused practice, you can change specific features, which shows how trainable certain elements of accent are. But training usually targets clarity or a particular role, not erasing identity.
Generational change in families is telling too. Grandparents might have a strong regional Indian English accent, parents a hybrid influenced by media, and children growing up abroad might adopt local accents and code switch. That emotional layer, parents feeling their kids don't sound like us, is real.
Media stereotypes are important to mention. Films often give villains certain foreign or regional accents, or portray comic characters with exaggerated call center English. These portrayals shape public attitudes and reinforce stereotypes about competence or trustworthiness.
Emma, shall we pause and do a quick myth-busting segment? I think listeners will appreciate a straight list.
Yes, myth-busting quickfire. Myth 1. There is one correct English accent. False. English is global. Many standard varieties exist: British, American, Indian, Nigerian, and more.
Myth 2. Accent shows how smart you are. False. Accent reflects social background and exposure, not intelligence.
Myth 3. People with strong accents are harder to understand, so their accent is bad. Partly false. Unfamiliar accents can be harder at first, but clarity can be improved with speed adjustments and enunciation. The accent itself isn't a moral failing.
Myth 4. You should remove your accent completely. Not necessary. A realistic goal is to increase clarity and flexibility without erasing identity.
Myth 5. I don't have an accent. Nope, everyone has an accent. If yours matches the socially dominant group, you just don't notice it. There, myth-busting complete.
Practical takeaways they can carry home. Number 1. Accents are natural and unavoidable. If you speak, you have an accent.
Nice. Number 2. Accents tell history. British, American, and Indian English all reflect migration, colonization, and social change. The sound is a living archive of contact and power.
Number 3. The R sound is a clear window into accent history. British elites dropped it in the 18th, 19th centuries, while many Americans and Indians preserved it, which explains a lot about rhoticity patterns.
Number 4. No accent is better, but some are more socially powerful. Power, media, and education decide which accents seem neutral or correct. That's a social fact, not a linguistic one.
Number 5, you can adjust your accent for clarity without losing yourself. Work on pronunciation goals tied to communication, not erasure.
And number 6, every accent is beautiful, especially when paired with confidence and a willingness to communicate. That one is close to my heart.
Mine too. Emma, do you have a personal anecdote about accents from your ESL teaching days you want to share? Something listeners can relate to?
Oh, many. One quick one. I taught a student from Delhi who worried everyone would laugh at her Indian English. She focused on slowing down slightly and using clear vowel length, and within weeks her confidence soared. Classmates stopped commenting on accent and started asking her for help on content. It was a small shift with a big impact.
I can relate. I grew up between Mexico City and the US and always had that subtly mixed accent. In school, teachers sometimes judged me. Later, I realized it just reflected my life. The mixed accent felt like evidence of family and movement, and eventually I came to value it as part of my identity.
I love that. It's such a human part of speech, not a flaw, but a record. Okay, let's end with a tiny practical exercise for listeners who want to experiment. Try the car example. Say car as you normally would, then try making it non-rhotic, car, and then rhotic, car. Notice how your tongue and jaw move.
Another quick exercise. Listen to someone on a podcast or show you like, then try to mimic one simple feature, a vowel quality or the rhythm, for a few minutes. It helps you notice differences without trying to erase your accent. Just observation, not self-judgment.
And if you want clarity in conversation, focus on slowing a touch, opening vowels, and enunciating key consonants. That's often enough to bridge understanding without changing identity. Little changes, big results.
Emma, shall we close by reminding listeners that accents are maps of history and identity? It seems like a nice line to end on.
Yes, accents are indeed maps of migration, power, and community. They tell stories about where people have been and who they are. So be curious about accents, not judgmental. And celebrate them.
Thanks so much for listening. If you enjoyed this episode, tell a friend and maybe share an accent story. We love hearing about listeners' experiences. Until next time, I'm Lucas.
And I'm Emma. Take care and remember, your accent is yours to keep, shape, and be proud of. Bye for now.